This is episode 206 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today we're interviewing Tony Kasandrinos, all about olive oil. He talks about what you want to look for if you're shopping for olive oil at your health food store, what you want the polyphenol content to be, as well as the acid content, why the freshness and the harvest date is really important, all of the different uses of olive oil besides just pouring it on your salad, cooking with olive oil, and myths around the smoke point, how to dose your dog or cat on olive oil, and so much more. This was a really fun deep dive. He is Greek, he is passionate, and he really understands all of the nuances and detail that goes into producing the highest quality olive oil possible. Here he is, Tony Kasandrinos. All right, Tony Kasandrinos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting one because I honestly don't know that much about olive oil. I think I know as much about it as the average person. I actually used to go to Costco when I was working 3 jobs and minimum wage and just, chugging along, trying to, pinch pennies everywhere I could. And I would buy that big Kirkland signature jug of olive oil. And after a few years, I started looking at that bottle. I mean, one is in plastic, and then kind of just comparing the taste of that versus different olive oils at the health food store. I'm like, I wonder how pure this is. And then I started to hear whispers of adulterated olive oil, and it ends up being this whole rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. It can, there's about 1 million rabbit holes that can branch off of, initially, there's a few serious issues with the olive oil in the United States and around the world. But, at the end of the day, most of it is pretty good. It's just about sourcing it properly and, getting as close to the production as you can, like with all foods.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of aspects to that we're going to go into.
Yeah.
But before we go into the details, like what made you get interested in the olive oil industry and pursuing
No,
it?
definitely. So it kind of, I'd say, fell in my lap in the sense that my parents are Greek immigrants, and everybody in Greece has olive trees pretty much, unless you're living in a city, which we only have like 2 decent sized cities in Greece. It's a very village lifestyle environment, and everybody who's, lives in a village has their own olive orchards. So, it's kind of like how, I guess, ice would be to somebody in Alaska. Like, it's just like everywhere. So growing up, I really never thought about it. It was just like, we always had tons of olive oil. We always, during the winter, fall, winter, spring, we'd always harvest the olives. And that's kind of it, and then we just did that, and olive oil was always around us in abundance. When we were back in America, we used to go back and forth a lot as kids growing up. My dad, who owns a Greek diner in upstate New York, him and my uncle, they would bring over enough olive oil to like sell in their restaurant. So, it was just always in the restaurant as well, so they're just selling our family oil to the customers. And again, didn't think anything of it. I went off to the military at 18 years old and, went into my own career. We still had our olive orchards back in Greece, but really didn't think too much of it. They were harvested in the winter. We sold them to buyers and then brought over a little bit for ourselves. And that was the end of it. And then my sister, she went in the finance industry. I'll tell you why I bring my sister up in a few minutes. About 10 years into my military career, I was stationed in Philadelphia, a few hours from New York. And I'd go back home here and there on the weekends if I had time. And I was training pretty heavily in CrossFit at the time. And this is kind of when paleo was first up and coming. Like Rob Wolf was like the main name. And it was just up and coming. And we had it was like a birthday party for the owner's husband. And we had a whole spread in the middle of the gym with all this, like, I remember they had an entire pig. And, but at the end, they had a giant salad and they had a big bottle of some Italian olive oil. So I told my friend Aaron, I was like, I got a case in my trunk. Let me bring out some good stuff. So I brought it out. Everybody loved it. So I ended up giving away the whole case, which was like 12 bottles to my friends. Over the next few months, just word of mouth, like I basically became an olive oil dealer out of the trunk of my car. I was making trips back to New York to get more cases. And it just kind of snowballed from there. Again, still not even thinking I had a business. I was just mainly sharing our oil with my friends. And then I got stationed down in Texas, and all my friends from Philly still wanted the olive oil. So at that time, I was like, maybe I have a business on my hands. So I created a one-page website, called my dad. I was like, can you ship me down a pallet of oil? And he did. We figured out the logistics of doing that. And I just started selling it online and shipping it, when I'd get home from work from the Marine Corps. And it just grew from there. About 6 months into that, I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I called my sister one day. I was like, hey, you want to start a business with me? And she said yes. And we decided to, we're like, what are we going to name this? And we couldn't think of a name. So we're like, we're just going to name it our last name. We just did that, and we sold it online. And we decided very early on, because we look at our olive oil like it is liquid gold. It's something that we love sharing with people. We never wanted to sacrifice the integrity of it. So we decided we were going to strictly be e-commerce and only sell directly to customers. This was before a lot of food brands were even selling online. So over the next probably 7 years, we just kept it growing, and it was a total side hustle with my sister and I. And we had a few things outsourced, like our fulfillment center, and all the production happens in Greece. And then we just kept it growing, and it grew quite a bit. We never did marketing, like we never ran Facebook ads or any of that stuff. It was all word of mouth, and with the help of like influencers and affiliates, it just kind of spread and grew. And then I retired from the military about a little over 3 years ago, and we went full steam ahead and have been growing ever since. And that's kind of like how we started. Never planned on having a business, but it happened. And, the cool thing was we both had other careers. So it was really a passion project, and it still is to this day. I mean, it's grown, a lot more than I ever thought it would have, but we still look at it as, sharing our family oil with our friends. It's just our friends network has grown by a lot, and grows daily. But I mean, I guess it's good to have more friends.
That's great. And I'm guessing it's not all from your parents' backyard, right?
So the way it works, we actually didn't even talk about this, but we're from a very remote village. Like my dad's village is like 850 people, and there's probably more like goats and donkeys in that vicinity than humans. Within, I'd say, probably 10 square miles, there's three or four other villages. There's a valley. That entire valley is nothing but olive trees. Like it's just straight olives. So when people have farms there, it's not really like here where it's like, oh, that farmer's got 300 acres. It's very patchwork. So you might have like an acre here, 3 acres down the road, and everyone's part of a co-op in that vicinity. And there's one olive mill, which turns the olives into olive oil. And it's a co-op. So everyone in the area is a part owner of this co-op. It's an organic mill, which is cool because all the olives in that region are organically farmed, and there's no pesticides or fertilizers used in that whole area, which is really cool because now you're not getting runoff from the farm down the street or whatever. Right. And then we also have a bottling facility as well. So we do, at this point, we've like outgrown our family production. Everybody's got a little bit, like cousins and aunts and uncles. And so it all comes from that one valley. It's just, different. Some might be a few hundred yards away and different trees.
That's really cool. Am I thinking of wine, or back in the day, did they used to stomp on it with bare feet to
That was
extract it?
wine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, grapes are a lot squishier than olives because olives have pits in them.
Right,
So
right.
you definitely don't want to be stomping on olives. They'll squish, but they're more of the consistency, I'd say, of like a hard stone fruit.
Okay.
Maybe like a cherry. I guess would be it'd be. You don't want to stomp on cherries.
So was it like just evolution of olive mill designs over the centuries? Like,
Yeah, this has been happening for thousands of years. How they used to do it is with stones, and they'd get like giant stone wheels, and they'd basically put the olives on a flat stone and have these two other circular stones, and they just like spin these things with a donkey, literally.
wow.
It's pretty actually in Sparta, which is really close to where we're at, like for the movie 300. Um, it's actually still a real city village. They have the olive oil museum where you can actually see how these processes have changed over the hundreds of years. And other than it being mechanical now, the process is pretty similar. But you used to basically just grind down the olives and the juice would come out. Because at the end of the day, all olive oil is a fruit juice. Now we just use machines to actually extract the oil from the olive. But yeah, hasn't really changed too much.
It's interesting you say fruit juice, because when I think of olive oil, I think of monounsaturated fats and some saturated and polyunsaturated.
Yeah.
But olives are a fruit still, right?
Yeah, it's a fruit. It's a fruit. Yeah. And they definitely taste a lot different when you eat one of those off a tree because they are disgusting. A lot of people don't know that. Olives, when you take them one off a tree, it's like the most bitter thing in the world. You actually have to cure an olive to make it edible or to where you would want to eat it.
Yeah, back in my raw vegan days, one of the superfoods along with like goji berries was those packaged dehydrated like olives.
Yeah.
I can't remember, what exactly, but it was like basically black olives. And they tasted really good, but I'm sure they had to do a lot of stuff to it to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not you basically like even like normal olives. You soak them in fresh water, then salt water, and you do that for like a few weeks and switch it out, and then you put a lot of people they'll put them in brine, like a water and salt and a little bit of vinegar mixture, and then that's how most olives are here in the U.S. What we do even I do it here at home is we'll get the olives and then we'll throw away all that brine and we'll pour in a ton of olive oil and we'll let them marinate in the olive oil because now you have olives that are just soaked in olive oil and they taste a lot better.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it's organic, and I think we were talking about before we hit record, like why it's so important for olive oil to be organic.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so unfortunately, most of the olive oil on the planet today is not organic. It's conventionally farmed, which is weird because organic should be conventional. But so I guess we'll talk about the right way first. Most of our trees in our region, they're literally hundreds of years old, if not older. You can look on our Instagram. We have some pictures or videos of the fields and what they look like there. I mean, these like trunks are the size of a car, and they're really pretty amazing. But we don't spray them with pesticides. We don't use fertilizers on them, and what that means is we don't have as big of harvests. Like, you use fertilizers, you're going to get more fruit out of it. But the problem with these harmful compounds that they spray them with is, like we said earlier, an olive is a fruit and it's actually kind of porous. And, you can start from the tree, the root system is soaking this stuff up. The leaves are getting, the pesticides on them and they spray them with everything under the sun, including Roundup. The olives themselves are soaking it in, so now once you take these olives and you harvest them and you process them, where do you think all that stuff goes? So unfortunately, A lot of people, when they're purchasing extra virgin olive oil, they think, oh, this is a really healthy product that I'm consuming, but it might not be, So, and we were talking about this before. Like I always tell people, the information I give, like I'm giving it as if I'm a consumer, and I'm buying olive oil. And I think I told you before, like I've actually ran out of my own oil in my house before, and I'm like, oh, I got to place an order, or call my fulfillment center and have them send me some. But I have actually gone out and purchased olive oil, and there's some certain telltale signs. But the first one is if it's not organic, I'm not touching it because there's just no need to.
It makes sense. Yeah. One question that came up for me, Tony, was environmental pollution, because I've, studying like detoxification for years. I've heard, the most pristine corners of the world, they can still measure like heavy metals, and people freak out about this. I think now, like there's like this whole glyphosate free marketing with everything. And it's my understanding it's impossible to avoid, when plants are grown in the open air anywhere on planet Earth, stuff that's being sprayed in the sky, industrial pollutants, coasting over from other countries. It's just simply going to happen. But is your little, the valleys over there, does it tend to be
the
more
cool thing, I mean, as far as, getting really going over the sky, I mean, you'd have to have like a ton of it. The way our valley is set up, we actually have 2 mountain ranges on each side and the ocean, the Aegean Sea on the other. Wow. So it is actually pretty well isolated from any farms that may be using pesticides. And it's not so much always the olives. A lot of times it's the oranges. They're notorious. I mean, they're the worst. You just unfortunately, and that happens on like a lot more in flatland areas, so that you do have you have the water system for one, so you have that, and then you also have just no real barriers between certain farming areas. And you can see, like, if people are spraying pesticides, I mean, I'm sure people have seen them driving through the middle of the country, and they're, all the soy farms and corn farms, and they're just spraying these things. And the wind's blowing, you can see the stuff moving, So, and that's one thing we actually do. What we do, and any company's doing it right, we actually do a chemical analysis. We actually do 2 chemical analysis tests on every batch of oil that tests for everything under the sun. The first thing we're really looking for is the acidity level of the olive oil and the polyphenols, and but the only real way you're going to know what's in your oil is by testing it.
Right. That makes sense. With the polyphenols, I'd imagine there's like different amounts and ratios that you find in like coffee and other foods like that. Is it?
Yeah.
Are they a lot different or pretty similar?
I mean, they're different. It's not like, some olive oils are double what the next one is. Some olive oil brands, if they're a single sourced brand and not buying olives from all over the world or Mediterranean or whatnot, it will vary from harvest to harvest. It'll vary from time of year. Like if we were talking about earlier, you're going to get a higher polyphenol olive oil at the early harvest of the year as opposed to later harvest. I do feel like there's been a lot of marketing in the last few years, like the higher polyphenol olive oil or lower, is good or bad. At the end of the day, there is a happy medium in there, because a lot of very high polyphenol olive oils really don't taste that great. And a lot of people eat olive oil because it tastes good. So, you really don't want to generally find that mix, but it's not like it's a definitive amount, like, this is going to test out at 597 today. Well, the next harvest might test out at 622 or, so it's, it all depends, but.
Interesting. Yeah. They're great prebiotics. So that's just, I mean, one benefit of olive oil I never knew about. Like, it's actually good for your intestinal health in that way.
Oh yeah.
let's see, grades of olive oil was another aspect to this whole thing. So extra virgin versus refined.
Yep.
You were saying only go for extra virgin, right?
Yep. I wouldn't eat anything but, and all it really is like, it's the acidity level of the olive oil. And the refined oil, you don't want to even be consuming it. The virgin olive oil, which is the next step below extra virgin, it's has its uses. Like it's good in like mayo. If you really would prefer to use an olive oil, but do not want to have that overpowering olive taste, so it's more bland. It's kind of like avocado oil, I guess. It's got more of a bland taste to it. It is lower in the antioxidants and polyphenols, so it has its uses in cooking or whatnot. It does have a lower smoke point than your extra virgin. So your refined oil and anything below virgin is not edible. You don't want to eat that stuff. Like in Greece, for example, like and this is like back in the day, and we can talk about like how you actually make oil, but it was like you get your extra virgin on back in the day when you actually suppress the olives, and then what was left, the liquid you can get out of that was basically like your low grade oil, and that's what you would use to like use in lamps and stuff. I mean, wow. Back in the day, you weren't eating that stuff.
So is it like the more you process it, what increases the acidity level?
So the acidity level there's a lot. Extra virgin, let me just rewind a second. So extra virgin on the acidity level scale is 0.8 or below acidity level.
Interesting.
Now, that being said, there's a big difference between 0.78 and 0.27. There's a big taste difference. Like anyone off the street who doesn't know olive oil, you put the two side by side with them and they will taste the difference. The lower acidity, it tastes better. It's generally healthier for you. But they're both considered extra virgin olive oils. Now the processing of it, that is not, it's not pressed anymore. It's actually like churned and turned into like it looks like brown baby food, essentially. It's like a mash. And then from there, you extract the liquid from the mash. And, and that didn't used to happen because we didn't have an extractor like 100 years ago where we can take the liquid from the pulp, essentially. And then that pulp, we kind of recycle it and turn it into like little logs, and they use that for fire. The liquid itself, once you have your oil, it's filtered in most cases. Some people like unfiltered oil. The best way you can compare that or give an analogy of that would be orange juice with or without pulp. Like if you unfilter oil, it's going to have like little olive residue inside of it. It's going to have a different color, and it's good. It's, the only problem with it is that residue causes it to go bad quicker. So that's why your unfiltered oil, it's very rare you'll see it in stores. Like if you're getting it, generally you're getting it direct from a company, because it doesn't last that long.
Interesting. Yeah. On that topic of it going bad, what I've been doing with your olive oil is just refilling using like the big can, refilling my glass bottle. And I know you guys sell like the spout, but then it comes with a twist cap. And I used to store my olive oil with it open with that spout. And I know, I think yours might have the little cap on the top, but it doesn't seem to be airtight. However you do it with any spout. So I just keep the little screwed on thing. Would you say that's the best way to do it, to like reduce oxidation? I mean,
it depends on how long we're talking here. So the main things that destroy olive oil, one is oxygen. The other is light. The other is heat, and the other is time. right? So when it comes to the oxygen in there, um, it takes quite a bit of time. So it depends on how fast you're going through this oil. If you keep it a cap that's not air sealed tight for a few weeks, it's not going to hurt it. Now, if you leave it for a few months, it's going to degrade the oil. And again, so if you have oil that's 2 years old, I don't want people to think like, oh, this isn't edible. It's still edible. We don't recommend it, not because it's not edible, because it's not peak. Like if you're having olive oil, in most cases, you're either doing it for the taste or the health benefits. There's a million and one health benefits, but you want to only keep at home what you're going to consume in the next 6 months if you're getting it from a fresh source. Not talking grocery stores. So say you purchase like ours today or some other producer that's selling fresh olive oil, you buy that bottle, you want to open it within 6 months. And then once you've opened it, consume it within a few months. Because once you crack that seal, it starts very slowly oxidizing. But you definitely, if it's going to be a long period of time, I wouldn't keep a bottle spout on it. I actually, even at home, like I use a bottle spout. I actually have a bottle with a bottle spout that I use when I only want to put a little bit of olive oil on something, and we can get into uses of olive oil. But if there's I have another bottle, like my big 1 liter bottle when I'm making a Greek salad and I don't want a little tiny amount of olive oil on that salad, So, spouts are good. They have their purpose, and it just depends. I like it on the little bottle and for small uses.
That makes sense. Wow. Yeah. I'm fascinated with the science of all of that. I think
and it pretty much goes hand in hand with almost all food, honestly. Like,
right.
Most juices are going to be the same way. Most oils are going to be the same way. I mean, can
you freeze it to like preserve it? Can you freeze olive oil? Or
you can, but and some people do. And I actually, I do. Not normally. What I do, and you might see this on the internet, and some people do it, but it's kind of a cool little hack. But I use it within a month. Like if you get an ice cube tray and you put like different herbs in each like little tray, pour in some olive oil, throw it in the freezer, and then you go and cook a ribeye next Monday. You take out one of those cubes and you put it in your cast iron, and now you got a little, like pretty much an infused little
marinade
tablespoon of olive oil.
That's pretty cool.
So, but normally would I take a bottle and freeze it? No, not at all. Some people do the fridge test to tell if an olive oil is real or not, to see if it will coagulate. Olive oil should coagulate in a refrigerator. And not all of it does at the same temperature, because there's hundreds of different varieties of olives and they all have different compounds, and they're not all produced, or they're not all the same, but I wouldn't put them in the fridge or freezer, because in the fridge it also will build up condensation inside the bottle, and now you're mixing water. It's not worth doing.
So what if I did that with Kirkland Signature from Costco and I put it in the fridge? If it's, is that a way to tell if it's cut with soybean or canola if it doesn't solidify?
No, because there's a lot of other oils that also coagulate. So just because it coagulates doesn't mean that there's nothing else in there.
Even in
that being said, I very highly doubt a brand like Kirkland would ever put anything else in their oil outside of olive oil. But I don't speak to what we do.
Just with how cheap it is, I'm starting to question.
There's reasons why the bigger brands are cheaper. We were touching a little bit on earlier when we were talking, is they do big volume and they buy from buyers all over the world, so you might have like a California olive oil, but you flip it over on the back and it says bottled in California with olive oil from Tunisia, Argentina, Greece, Spain, Italy, Israel, and Morocco. Okay. That's what pretty much all the big brands do. They buy olive oil from all over the world. When they're buying it in giant bulk amounts, they get it cheaper. but they also might not be getting the fresh harvest in there. So they might have last year's olive oil in there as well, which is still edible and it's still healthy. It's just not as high quality as the fresh stuff, you know? So when you're buying cheaper oil, it's kind of like, you're spending, I don't know what a Big Mac is these days, but a $4 Big Mac at McDonald's, or you're going to the local butcher and getting the local grass-fed ribeye, and you're going to spend, $25-$30 a pound, So you're basically, there's certain things that will make an olive oil more expensive. These big companies are just doing it at a mechanized level too. Like the farming methods are much different. I mean, and you go on our Instagram and see our fields and what they look like. They're like, you can see the grass, like there's vegetation and there's like wildlife and there's bugs and we handpick our olives. So it takes a lot longer, it's like literally handpicked, but why they're handpicked is because it doesn't destroy the fruit. What a lot of these big companies you'll go to and you'll see, and you could look at the soil and tell like that they're using pesticides. They drive these giant tractors over them. They vibrate the trees, suck out all the olives, and move on to the next one. And they do what we do in an hour in like a minute.
Wow.
Because they literally just drive over these trees. But that also comes at a cost, like the olives, once they're just go into this giant truck because they're just being sucked out of these trees, they're getting bruised up. So now that they're bruised up, by the time they make it to the mill, they've been sitting around in the back of the truck for how long? When you're hand picking them, there's not too much bruising going on. And, it's just a whole different process and a whole different way of doing things the right way versus the conventional way.
Yeah, up here we have huckleberries, and every summer I go out in the backwoods and harvest them by hand. Mm-hmm. So I respect how meticulous and tedious it is, but it's like a meditation. I'm sure
it is, and it's a labor of love too, and it's like we've always, like I told you earlier, like that we really look at our company and the way we do things, and and even the new products we're coming out with, that like it's done sustainably. It's done in a way that is healthy for the people and the environment and just the way it's all happening. But all those little things, from like the pesticides and how you water the trees, that's a big thing we really didn't touch on much. And how you actually harvest the olives and how you prune the tree and how you treat the tree and the soil around it. Like it plays a role, and it comes out in the bottle at the end of the day. And that's why, our olive oil and a lot of other ones out there that are doing it the right way are more expensive because they're not cutting corners.
I'm sure that stresses the trees when they're doing the tractor thing and vibrating them.
For sure.
People come out here and like they'll sell huckleberries for cheap because they're using like some type of tool, but it thrashes the bushes and the locals get pissed because of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like a never ending cycle. It's like now you shot the tree. I mean, people, they're freaking living things. They've been around for hundreds of years. You're just like doing this to them, and it affects next year's harvest. So a lot of people don't know this. Olive trees, you only get one harvest a year out of that thing. And you've seen our 3-liter, biggest can. That's one tree. It takes one tree to make that.
Wow.
That's all you're getting all year is one tree, one can, So it's like, when you're driving these tractors over them, you probably going to get less next year, or you can, pump it full of fertilizers. So it's like, basically putting it on steroids and hoping it produces more next year and just watering the hell out of it. And,
You mentioned how you water them. I know some wine companies talk about like dry irrigation, and that changes things with that.
Oh, yeah.
Is it kind of similar with?
Well, and this is it's very different. So most of our trees, I'd say like a majority of them, like I told you, were around way before our grandparents were here. They're old. So the amount of water they got is what they got from rain or mountain runoff. That was the water. if you and I start a farm right now, an olive farm, and we start it a mile away from each other, we have 1 acre each. You plant 100 trees and I plant 100 trees, and you water yours daily and I water mine once a week, you're going to have olives way before I do, probably about 4 or 5 years sooner. So that's 4 or 5 years of harvests that you're going to profit on that I am not. Most people don't want to wait 6, 7, 8 years to get these olives. But the problem is, because you grew this tree watering it a lot as a little seedling on up, guess what happens the rest of its life? It requires that amount of water forever.
Oh.
And unfortunately, that's what we see a lot happening here in the States with, the production or a lot of the newer, olive oil farms out there. At the end of the day, their business, they're trying to make a profit. They're trying to do it as quickly as possible. They don't want to wait 6, 7, 8, 9 years. They want to wait like 3 or 4.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you kind of condition the olive trees to need
Exactly.
more water.
You condition it to require that for life.
Wow. What are the downsides of that? Like, because it sounds like a good thing, but I mean, if you have
looked at the Hoover Dam lately,
right? Oh, right. Well, here I'm on a spring. I'm so fortunate. I'm putting up a
but I mean, when you're looking at like
big
mass scale,
right.
we're really lucky, like where we're at in southern Greece. I mean, it's for anyone that's ever been there, or if you ever go, Greece is either mountains, beaches, or valleys with olives in them. That's literally like 85% of the country right there. Wow. But we do have a lot of mountain water that comes. But there's parts of the world that, even here in the U.S., I mean, we have droughts all the time. Out in Southern California, which produces like an inordinate amount of food for this nation and the world. And it's just like it's a delicate balance, and it can be thrown off very easily with water shortages,
Yeah.
And we've seen it. And
yeah, I recently found a personal machine for pulling water out of the air, almost like a dehumidifier, but into drinkable water. But that probably sucks a ton of power. I mean, and that's a whole other.
That's another issue. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you mentioned 1,000,001 health benefits of olive oil. Like, can you name a few? Like, and I know you said there's all these conflicting studies where it gets kind of tricky, right? But this kind of coincides with like Mediterranean diet that's been around. Like, when I think of that, I think of like fish, red wine, olive oil.
It's actually, yeah. First of all, on the health benefits, I mean, literally, there's all you get, and I do it like randomly. I'll just go to PubMed and like look at all these different studies, and it's almost like there's a study that olive oil helps assist in the cure of XYZ, Alzheimer's, every cancer under the sun, diabetes. I mean, you name it, gut health. So I generally tell people to, do their own research on whatever, if they're trying to cure something, look and see, not just olive oil, like what foods can help do this. Because I mean, I'm a firm believer, like most diseases, not all obviously, but a lot of the things are due to inputs that we're putting in our body, so look and say, okay, is, even an olive oil, it's like, because a lot of people might be eating olive oil because it's anti-inflammatory, but are you consuming olive oil that is inflammatory? So it's a lot you got to think about that you shouldn't. It's a lot you kind of got to investigate. And unfortunately, we're like and I'm speaking in the US, and unfortunately more and more throughout the world, we're in a situation where we do have to do the research on everything we're eating, and obviously, I mean, it's hard to do in cities, and it can still be done. And obviously there's financial cost to it, but you want to, as much as possible, either if you cannot grow your own food, get as close to the source as you can, because we've become so insanely detached from our food sources And we saw this during COVID, and we're seeing it right now. I mean, this is January of 2022. There's egg shortages. I mean, I was in the grocery store the other day and I was like, no eggs. I'm like, what's going on here? No eggs.
Yeah. I'm swimming in eggs here. I've steak-fed chickens to get my
exactly. Yeah,
leftovers.
and then you got chickens and too many. You don't know what to do with them. That's how I am in Greece with figs. We,
Nice.
here it's like a little box of figs is like $10, and over there I go through like 100 figs to find the 5 I'm going to eat. The rest of them, we throw in the chickens and stuff.
So I have a question on that, Tony. So my parents have a fig tree down in Southern California, and I did a deep dive into like how they're formed, and there's a bunch of articles online about how like an insect has to
wasp. It's a fig wasp.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, by the time you're eating it, it's not like it's a wasp. Trees completely digested that thing, but yeah.
But it basically has to lay a larvae in there, and
inside of the fig.
The fruit can digest it, right? And that's part of the process of making a fig.
That's how you make a fig. That's my favorite fruit. Like I can eat figs and there's so many different kinds of figs too.
I guess it's the same thing as I feed my chickens like grubs, like dry, dehydrated, like black fly larvae. But by the time I'm eating an egg, I'm not eating the larvae. I'm eating an egg, so it gets transmuted. So it's just one of those weird things about being a human.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just at a point where we kind of have to research all the food we're eating or choosing, like what kind of butter do I want to get? Do I want grass-fed butter? Do I want margarine or, whatever? And a lot of times, unfortunately, things are not mislabeled, but made to look a certain way when they're not. Like, oh, get this organic salad dressing, but you flip it over and it's like, ooh, it's organic canola oil and organic soybean oil and organic, it's like, come on.
Right.
Or you'll see like olive oil salad dressing, and then you'll flip it over and olive oil's like the 8th ingredient. It's like, And
I'd imagine too, when you're buying those blends, you probably get lower quality ingredients in blends, right? Versus blending the stuff yourself if you're going to combine stuff.
Yeah.
Like those keto dressings or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's some good ones out there. I've got some favorites that I replicate. We actually have an ebook on dressings and infusions, which we're actually going to turn into a real book. Because unfortunately, it's again one of those things. And you were talking about earlier, like eating or salads, and a lot of people eat a salad because they think it's healthy, but they'll put like a bunch of ranch or blue cheese on it, and then you look at see what that ranch is made out of, and it's like all soybean oil, and all of a sudden your healthy salad turned into 1,200 calories of unhealthiness. So we have been coming up for years now of different dressings and infusions, and just teaching people, hey, this is how you can make a really healthy, easy dressing at home in like a minute. It's like really simple and easy to make. And it's just, unfortunately, like kind of like where we live right now in the time when it comes to food and marketing and, what people have to kind of educate themselves on. But at the end of the day, it's all about their health and what they're consuming.
It's a complicated world now. Yeah. It used to be this complicated.
It is. It's a double-edged sword too, because we also, it goes both ways. We also have more availability to really healthy food now than we did like when you and I were little kids. Like when you went to a grocery store in the 70s or 80s, were you finding grass-fed beef? No,
Yeah.
So it's, we do have a lot of availability. It's just about educating the consumers to really be knowledgeable on what they're doing. And at the end of the day, it kind of, just becomes like an education thing.
Yeah. And I like that you're only e-commerce, direct to consumer. I often tell people it's a lot of the times that way with supplement companies or different products. Like my favorite jerky is only online. They don't sell it in any store. Yeah. So that just getting that in people's heads that some of their shopping they have to do online now if they want to get quality.
Yeah, well, you do. And, we we don't have to be. We choose to be e-commerce, and it's by no means for profit. In fact, we're leaving a lot of money on the table by taking that stance. With olive oil, and I would assume most other companies that don't want to be in stores, it has to do with the shelf life. And I mean, I know we have an awesome premium product, and there's a lot of other good ones out there. But if I were to sell my olive oil to a distributor who sells it to a grocery store, even if it's a really high-end grocery store, and now it goes on their store shelf, I 100% lose the quality control of that product. I don't know how long it's in a distribution center. I don't know how long it's sitting in a truck in Arizona outside in the heat. I don't know how long it's sitting inside of, the grocery store's warehouse. Then I don't know how long it's sitting on a store shelf, sitting underneath the lights 24/7. So there's a lot of different things that we lose the control of. And now, I have friends who have their olive oil brands in grocery stores. And I know, because I've been to their farms, that's a really high quality olive oil. But I've lost the ability to know when that oil is from. Or I could look on the back of the bottle, and a lot of times you can go into some of these high-end grocery stores and flip that bottle and it's 2-3-year-old oil.
Oh.
So we chose that a long time ago. And just kind of where it's at.
So you mentioned the light. Like, I know you bottle in a dark bottle. Is that still a concern if it's just constant bombardment with direct light, even though it's a dark bottle? Like, it'll still affect over time?
It stops quite a bit of the light, even with, so like our olive oil, it's bottled in grease, put the label on it, goes right into a box. It doesn't see light again until someone places an order in our fulfillment center. They pull the bottle out of the box, wrap it up, put it in the box, and send it to the customer. Then the customer opens it. We recommend, as much as I love seeing our bottles on people's kitchen counters and stuff, we recommend people put it in their cabinet, just because the light will affect the quality of the oil, and it will degrade the polyphenols, the antioxidants, and the taste over time. It will. It's 100%. So, if you want the best tasting product, and that's ultimately what I care about, is you're getting an awesome tasting product, and a healthy product, that you can, I like to tell people to hide it,
Yeah. Did you ever look into Miron glass, Miron? It's that violet. I think it's made of cobalt. For a while, I was being a water connoisseur and trying everything with water hacks. Basically, it only allows in infrared and UV light, which I don't know if that would be, and it blocks all the visible spectrum except for like infrared A and UV light. But it's super expensive, and I don't know how practical it is, but they do make.
Yeah, it wouldn't be practical, honestly. Like I have looked into it. At the end of the day, if we sold in stores, I would say it makes sense.
Right.
But because we don't, and our bottles really never see light anyways, it's kind of like not really worth the cost. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, our olive oil is more expensive than cheaper olive oils. I think it's like, we try and keep it on par with all the costs associated with having a business and all that. But it is more expensive because of the way we do things the right way. That being said, we want to keep it as affordable as possible for people. And with something that I don't think is going to make too much of a difference.
It's not blessed by like a Buddhist monk or every batch.
Yeah, it is kosher, kosher certified. But it's
that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing experiments where I pour yours into Miron glass, and I'm pretty sensitive, so I'll put it in the sun for 5 minutes, see if I quote charge it up. I'm sure there's some interesting quantum properties there that I don't understand. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Might be something to look into.
So the uses of olive oil beyond salad dressing, like you mentioned the ice cube one, which is fascinating. Have you ever just poured it directly on your ribeye steak?
100%. In fact, when I cook a ribeye, I'll tell you, because I actually just made a ribeye last night and probably have another one tonight. Um, is I make it in cast iron, and I'll put olive oil down first, season the steak, put the olive oil or put the steak down for a few minutes. When I flip it, I actually use ghee. My wife and is Punjabi Indian, and my mother-in-law is staying with us right now because we have a newborn, and I have unlimited amounts of grass-fed ghee. So I use ghee a lot as well. But I actually use olive oil and ghee on pretty much all my meat.
Wow.
Ribeyes, lamb. I eat lamb chops at least like probably 3 times a week. So lamb chops, ribeyes, chicken, I use more olive oil, I would say. As far as, for cooking, like actually heat cooking, always on fish. I eat salmon probably once or twice a week. I definitely use olive oil on those. I don't use ghee on fish. No, I just think about that. One thing I do, because I live down here in Florida, where we have like a lot of oysters, and I love oysters, is I've always put olive oil on raw oysters.
Wow. I'm going to try
just to give it a little extra flavor, because they're kind of bland,
Right.
So I actually, we were talking about our little travel packets earlier that we bring to restaurants and whatnot, but we'll go and get raw oysters here all the time. And I always bring our travel packets, and I'll, like, if I get like a dozen raw oysters, I'll pour like 1 or 2 packets on the oysters and let it just kind of marinate for a little while before I eat them.
Wow. Have you ever tried a fresh squeezed lime on raw oysters?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's not lime. I do
a lot of people do lemon. Yeah. I recommend trying the lime. I'm going to try it next time.
Definitely.
Lime with your packets. I'm sure that'd be a good combo too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing too, while we're on that topic. Flavored olive oil. You notice we don't sell that. And the reason we don't sell that is because if you see flavored olive oil, that's food flavoring inside of it. So if you want like lemon olive oil, just get some olive oil and mix it with some fresh lemon juice. Or if you want some garlic olive oil, get some olive oil, get some garlic cloves, put it in a saucepan and put it on ultra low for like an hour and let it simmer. Yeah. And you have garlic olive oil. That's kind of what I was telling you with our book. We're teaching people how to like make these flavored olive oils and flavored dressings and infusions, because a lot of really cool stuff you could do to really change the taste profile of the olive oil. But and what's the craziest part about it is you might see a lot of times you'll see that flavored olive oils are smaller bottles.
Right.
They'll literally use olive oil, put food flavoring in it, put it in a smaller bottle, and sell it for more than the big bottle. Because it's like,
wow. Now I feel stupid, and I'm outing myself as like a Costco devotee, but they sell that little pack there.
Yeah,
it's like
a
4-pack. They have like lemon, garlic, the other ones.
Yeah,
and, they tasted good, but it's good. I mean, it sounds easy enough to make your own, and I'm sure it tastes way
simple.
better.
And so it takes like a few minutes, It does.
Wow.
Now we actually, so you can see behind me, I know this is on audio, but we have flavored vinegar, we have flavored balsamic.
That stuff's
we actually use the pulp of the fruits in there. It's like, wow. It's not like fig flavoring, it's fig pulp.
Wow.
So yeah, but with the olive oils, and the reason why we don't sell it is because, again, it goes bad really quick. Right. Garlic olive oil will only last so long if it's made with real garlic.
How long? Like a few weeks or?
A few weeks. Yeah. I make it like for what I'm going to use in the next few days when I do it.
Interesting. Wow.
It's really good on like mashed potatoes, like garlic olive oil is good on mashed potatoes.
I'm going to start pouring it on everything from now.
Or, you know what, like, and again, it goes back. I know probably a lot of people listening don't like corn, but if you do find some organic, non-GMO corn, and make popcorn and put some olive oil on it, it's freaking amazing. Wow.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I forgot about the balsamic and the other one. So we'll get to that at the end, but you mentioned smoke point, and that's like a burning question. I think that was like half the questions I got from listeners.
I know everyone wants to know about smoke point of olive oil.
And just safety of cooking with it. And you already mentioned you kind of sear your steak with it, right?
I do. So All right. Olive oil and cooking. So I do think some other industries of other oils and fats have done a really good job marketing the king of the hill when it came to fats. Olive oil, is the most used fat in the world as far as oils, and have been like, oh, it's got a low smoke point. You shouldn't cook with it. There is conflicting science on whether it's healthy or not. There's literally, you can research it, and there's a lot of conflicting information. What I will say is what I do and what I've seen that works. The vast majority of my family lives in Greece, including my aunts and uncles and my grandparents, my grand aunts and uncles. And all we do is cook in olive oil. And that's all they've done for generations since they were little kids, because that's all they had. They didn't have, all the things that we have now. They bake everything in it. They cook everything in it. They fry everything in it. And they're by far healthier than we are here in the US. That goes back to the whole Mediterranean lifestyle. But so I cook in it. I haven't had any bad effects. But people I just tell people, do your own research, decide on if you want to cook with it or not. When it comes to the smoke point, different olive oils are all different and they have different smoke points. There's no 380 degrees and it's smoking. We've done testing on our own, and it doesn't. Again, every harvest is different. The last time we did it, it started smoking lightly at 420 something. It was 422, I think. So if this is what I think. If you're cooking with olive oil to the point where it's smoking, you probably need to learn how to cook or just tone it down a little bit, So yeah, that's the smoke point thing. It's, you probably shouldn't be smoking any oil. And if you need to smoke it, you're probably cooking too hot.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I know I've done such a deep dive into fats and come back to a place of balance with being polyunsaturated fats or Satan to they have their use. And I know olive oil is a mix of all three.
Yep.
It's just kind of like avocado oil, right? There's saturated, mono, and poly unsaturated. Yep. So, but the ratio of those, do you guys measure for those? I'm sure it varies batch to batch.
It does vary. And that's why it's kind of hard. When people we post all our results that are tied to the lot numbers. I can't show you because again, we're not on video, but if you look on the back of one of our bottles, we put the lot number on every bottle, and then we post, all the chemical analysis on our website as well. So you can go and match up what's on our bottle with what's on our website. And you can see the testing results of your specific bottle because it changes with every batch. It's not this is real food. It's a real fruit off a tree and it's different every season. You know what I mean? It's not, it's not going to fluctuate that much, but it does fluctuate, so, we get the question all the time, especially on Amazon, what's your polyphenol count? And I'm like, this is what it is. And I always put the date. I was like, on this date, this is what it was.
Yeah.
If you want to see the current harvest 2-3 years from now, ask again, because it's going to be different.
Right. Yeah. And I've looked into polyphenol testing since I've been researching them, and I have it in some of my products. And it's crazy expensive. If you were to do it every batch, it would get insane if you were to measure it every.
We actually do. So it's
the
it's
specific
not too bad when you're doing it in bulk. I mean, we're getting it done in Athens at the Athens University. They're testing it, and then we get it also done at the facility down by Sparta. And we don't want to just do one test. It's good to have two, and then we get it done here as well. But it's not that expensive, but for a company, I guess if you're testing your own stuff, it definitely gets pricey.
Well, there's a difference too. The company I looked into will name the specific ones.
Yep.
It
break them down and then give you a total at the end.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that what you guys do?
Yep.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a, and it's, again, it's more, for me, it's all about transparency. Unfortunately, a lot of the bigger brands don't do it. And the reason they don't do it is because they can't do it. And they can't do it because they're putting all different harvests of olive oils into that bottle.
Wow.
That's why they don't put a harvest date on their bottle, because they don't know that there is no harvest date. You have some giant corporation in California that says on the front of the bottle it's from California, but when you flip it on the back, it's not from California. It's bottled in California, and it has all these different countries on it. Well, we bought oil from 7 different countries and mixed it all together. What's the harvest date on it? We just don't know.
Do any companies add antioxidants to it to try to preserve really old batches like vitamin E and stuff?
It wouldn't surprise me if they have. I can't speak to that, as we've never done it, and I couldn't imagine doing that, because we're not selling old olive oil, and there's no need to do that. But yeah, now you're getting into like playing. In my opinion, you're trying to like improve on something that's really like a gift from nature, and it's like,
Right.
you could do that if you really want to, and but
Right. Yeah, because I know cod liver oil, they often do that because that's, kind of similar, like very prone to oxidation over time.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. And you said earlier, like cold pressed, every extra virgin olive oil is cold pressed, right? So
yeah. So cold
like,
press just means that during the process of turning olives into olive oil, which again, let me explain that process. We didn't touch on that, did we? Like how an olive turns into oil.
a little bit, but
Well, yeah, we harvest, we pick the olives,
right.
we bring the olives to the mill, then they go through a little, looks like a grate machine, I guess, where it separates the olives from any maybe twigs or leaves that got, because we're hand picking these things, the leaves get cut in there. So now we have just the olives. The leaves, those get turned into goat food, or tea. Make tea with olive leaves, and then so the olives, they go through, like, they get a little bath, they get washed to get any like dirt or whatever off them that is just there from the wind. Once they've been washed, they go into, and that whole process takes like 5 minutes. Then they go into this big centrifuge, which is a very slow churning masher. Like, it just churns the olives and it turns them into the paste. That takes about 45 minutes to an hour. Once that's done, it goes into a separator where it separates the liquid from the pulp. Now you've got liquid. You separate inside of the liquid, you actually have a mixture of water and olive oil, because all olives have olive oil and water inside of them. So now you separate the water and the olive oil, and now you have olive oil, and then you just filter the oil. So that's the actual process of that happening.
Is that paste edible, or have you eaten it?
Yeah, like pate.
Wow.
Like, yeah,
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So that's the process of making oil. Now, inside of that process, back to like the cold pressed question. So inside of that process, and it's mainly in the churning process, you don't allow the temperature to get above just under 82 degrees, like 81.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what cold pressed means, because once you get too much heat, now you're oxidizing the oil. Now, if the heat level goes above that, it's not considered extra virgin anymore. So if it's an extra virgin, it was cold pressed. So cold pressed is kind of like a little buzzwords.
It got me. Yeah, now I understand it. They can't fool
Yeah,
me.
it's it's kind of like a marketing thing.
Right.
People are like, oh, it's first cold pressed. It's if it's extra virgin, it's cold pressed.
Well, another marketing thing, we're kind
We
of
actually took it off our label because of that. Like, we don't even have it. And then when people ask us, like, is your olive oil cold pressed? We're like, it's cold pressed.
American sourced, is that another thing that companies use to like say ours is
So
better
this
or?
is one thing you got to be careful of. And I mean, trust me, I love America. I served this country for 22 years. Um, and the olive oil in this country there's some good ones out there. I'm first admit, like I love trying different olive oils too, because it's kind of like wine. I mean, the different olive oils different based on where it comes from. Some is it just all tastes different. The I get the wanting to source locally, makes sense. If you are doing that, make sure it actually is local, because there's a lot of brands in this country that say they're from a specific state, but they will source their olive oil from all over the world. And in my opinion, it's a little deceptive. And I'm sure you've seen some of the brands doing it, but either way. So yeah, when it comes to American oil, I don't think there's any really big single producers out there that are doing it. So if you are going to buy local, I do know there's some good ones down in Texas, actually. There's some good ones in Georgia, and there's some good ones in California. And I always encourage everyone, like obviously, yeah, try ours. I'd love for people to try ours, but try different oils from different places. Just try and get it right from the source if you can. And just there's certain things you want to look for, and it's always best to buy a single source and not just. There's nothing really inherently of mixing different olive oils from different olives, but you want the fresh stuff. And generally, when these big giant corporations are mixing oils from different countries, you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want to jump into some of the Q&A questions? Because that was kind of a
Yeah,
good
there's a lot of
segue
good
into you.
ones. Yep, definitely.
Like on adulterated olive oil, you mentioned some things to look for, how to tell if your olive oil is like blended with other stuff. Can you do any tricks like holding it up to light or exposing it to different temperatures and you see something different happen or things like
Yeah.
that? Or
So the big answer is no. There's one way you can do it. But I touched on the fridge test before. That's not very accurate at all. Yes, olive oil should coagulate, but there's other fat liquids that will coagulate and hold as well. All different olive oils are different colors. They are. There's some are more greener, some are more lighter yellow, whatever. Different olives produce different color olive oils. Again, they all smell different. It shouldn't be vinegary. That means it's rancid, but different olive oils will have a different smell to them. So you can't really do a smell test and be like, oh, this might have soybean oil in it. So visually, no. Smell, no. Taste, no. All different olive oils taste different. I've had some olive oils that taste like straight up grass. They're supposed to. It just some are spicier, some are a little blander. It all comes from, and even like the same fruit, honestly, grown in a different region could taste different. Like, every country, they like to claim they have the best olive oil. And then inside the country, every region has the best olive oil. And then inside the region, it's like, our farm's better than that farm, So it's all, I think, like a healthy competition of everyone trying to get the best oil. But at the end of the day, it's like saying, okay, who has the best wine or the best salmon, but the only way to find out is doing a chemical analysis at the end of the day. Unless you actually know what's inside of that, you don't know. And that's what I always ask people when they say, oh, I saw this study or this report done by this university in California that said all 80% of olive oil is adulterated in the US. Like, okay, which ones? If you read the reports, generally, what they will say is, we tested the olive oil off of grocery store shelves and it wasn't extra virgin. Remember, extra virgin is 0.8 or below acidity level. But we could take my bottle of olive oil, and I think our last batch tested probably at 0.2 something. If we test that olive oil 3 years from now, it's not going to be extra virgin anymore. Now, that's an issue with the distribution and the process of getting it from the farm to the table. So most of the olive oils that have failed sensory tests, it's not because they're being adulterated with other oils. It's because they're just old. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to the whole olive oil world. And it all has to do with a few articles that were written that just snowballed and went viral like crazy, is that olive oils, for some reason, are adulterated and mixed with other cheaper oils. I, as a brand owner, couldn't ever imagine doing that and putting my name and reputation on the line and my freedom, because you're probably going to jail for doing something like that. So yeah, that's kind of adulteration in a nutshell.
Would you say just you get what you pay for too, generally? Like look for the higher priced olive oil and the date on the bottle?
Date first, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be careful with the date. So the bottling date does not necessarily mean that's the harvest date. A giant corporation could buy olive oil from all over the Mediterranean and buy 3-year-old oil, 2-year-old oil, 1-year-old oil, and their harvest and mix it all together and bottle it today and put it best before date 24 months from today.
Wow.
And that's why you got to be careful on bottled dates. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. That's why you got to kind of know your source. Again, there's no set harvest date because we're not putting the exact date, because this is happening every day of the week for a few months. So it comes to really knowing more the season or the harvest of the oil. And, some brands will put, hey, this is 2022 fall harvest or 2022 winter harvest, so it's just one of those things you kind of need to know your sourcing.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful with the bottling dates.
Could they lie about that legally? Like say it's, because I know
harvest. They don't put a harvest date on there. There's no harvest date. It's a bottling date.
I mean, if they put the harvest date and say like, winter, whatever, could they just make that up? Or
yeah, I guess you could just make it up, and who's gonna, unless somebody's actually researching it,
right.
They might not know. To me, that's, obviously very unethical. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
If you got caught, I would assume that's definitely not
right. Interesting. Wow. Let's see some of the other good questions. Are most imported olive oils rancid?
I would say no. Again, it's hard to tell. Our most imported oils that are purchased from the brand itself, I'd say the vast majority no. Our most imported oils that are purchased at your lower end grocery stores, rancid, maybe, and it's not even that they're rancid. It's more that they're just degraded. Mm-hmm. They're still edible. I mean, my olive oil will probably last to where it tastes okay and you can eat it 3-4 years from now. But the reason why we're, consuming this awesome gift is for its healthy properties and its taste, and it's much better when it's fresh. It's like, I guess, drinking a glass of orange juice like right before the expiration date. Can you do it? Yeah. Is it as good as fresh squeezed orange juice that you drank the day it came off a tree? No.
Right. You're probably mostly just getting the macronutrient and not the polyphenols and the antioxidants and all the.
I mean, you're still getting them, but they're degraded greatly. And we actually did. It was about 4 years ago now. We did a chemical analysis. When our oil was pressed, and then we took one bottle, and I left it at my sister's house on her kitchen counter. I told her, "Do never use this oil because we're going to test this in 2 years." And she lives out in Las Vegas, and the way her kitchen was, it got like a bunch of sunlight throughout part of the day. So I was like, just leave this on your kitchen counter. And we tested it 2 years it was actually a little bit more. I was like 28 months down the road, and almost all the polyphenols were over 50% degraded on all of them. So it doesn't mean they're still not there, but again, it's, why do it when you don't have to? You get the fresh stuff. And even like our customers, I mean, obviously, like as a company and a brand, like I want our customers to buy and consume as much as possible, because I do think Americans need to consume a lot more olive oil, because in Greece they consume about 20 times more than we do here. But I also tell them, like, don't buy too much. Like, it's not something to stock up on for a year or two. Like, we're in COVID and we're going to run out of food, during the food crisis here. Like, just get what you're going to use in the next few months, and then get on like a auto shipment, or just remember to order like once a month, but don't stock up on it. I sometimes, when my friends or customers will post on social media, and they'll post like, because we kind of like update and make our label or our logos, and not our logo, but our labels, a little prettier every year or two. And I'll see like one from like 2 years ago, and I'm like, what are you doing with that? Like, get rid of it, drink it all, or something,
Well, it's great for me to hear, because I'm like prepper. I have 3 chest freezers, and they're all stocked full to the brim. I really wish you could freeze it, but it makes sense that you would lose some of the nutrition in it by freezing it, right, and then thawing it.
I mean, and it will like. So here's the thing. Again, I mean, we touch on it, but it's going to be edible for years down the road. So it's not. And when vinegar or when olive oil goes bad, it goes bad, and you can tell. It literally smells like vinegar.
Wow.
You're not going to want to eat it or consume it. But it's going to definitely last for a good amount of time. But if you're doing it for the taste and the positive properties, consume it soon.
Right. Why would drinking high quality olive oil make me nauseous?
So I saw that one earlier. That was a good question. I think that is, so high quality, I'm assuming she's probably talking about a higher polyphenol, and really ultra high polyphenol, like your really early harvest olive oil. It actually isn't the greatest tasting olive oil. Like it tastes a little like kind of gross. And you're like, so I'm assuming that's probably what made her queasy. Like, she probably did have a really great olive oil, and it was just too much. And if you drink too much of it and you don't do it often, it's kind of like not always takes a little getting used to for anyone that does drink oil. Like, even, I mean, I consume a lot of olive oil, and I don't think I can really drink more than a tablespoon at once, unless I'm eating it with a Greek salad, which is the greatest thing you can. Do you know what a Greek salad is, by the way?
I don't think so. Can you explain it?
We got to explain this really quick. So just try this once it's in season. Get some really good high quality tomatoes, some really good high quality cucumbers. Find a really great feta, preferably from Greece. Some good oregano, some good olives, and olive oil. Just mix that all together. It's such an amazing salad.
Wow.
And you'll see that like in Greece all the time. Like, people, that's like a staple at every meal.
Any particular type of, like, we're talking like spring mix or romaine or red leaf?
I didn't say anything about salad, Jeff. There ain't
there's no greens at all. It's just that tomatoes.
So it's actually like a funny, like, little mini thing.
Right.
It's cucumber,
I've had
tomato.
Right. You can tell I'm not
there's
Greek.
No lettuce. There's no green rabbit food in there. Nothing like that.
I'll be growing tomatoes and cucumbers, so I'll try a home.
Oh yeah, there you go. You put it on that with some and some high quality salt too. But
nice.
That's like my favorite thing to have, our dressing on.
Wow, that sounds really good. Yeah, especially during the summer.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything else on the Mediterranean kind of lifestyle or diet? Because we kind of touched on it before, but did you have any more?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I always like answer my question when it comes to like medical and health benefits back to like, hey, this is what, again, it's not like proven science, but this is what I've seen working for my entire life on people that live in not just the Mediterranean, but the the village Mediterranean lifestyle because, there's a lot of big cities in the Mediterranean now, and it's a whole different world that's evolved in the last, few decades. That's much different than even back in the 80s when I was a kid. But, and we were touching on this before, food is basically central to the whole Mediterranean diet / lifestyle. Like everything revolves around food. I mean, if you're not cooking food or eating food, you're probably growing food. Like everybody's got a few goats and a few chickens and fruit trees and vegetables. It's very, everybody's in a village lifestyle is very close to their food sources, So you might have a lot of people that live in like remote little villages that are like in their 70s or 80s, and they're, in better shape than most 40-year-olds here in this country. They might not really have a lot of money because, the income levels are way below what they are here. But they're eating a much higher quality diet than we are here. They're eating fish that came out of the sea. Like today, they're eating a chicken that they slaughtered, yesterday. Like, the milk from the goat came this morning. Like, so it's just, people are much closer to their food. Like we used to be here, even a few decades ago, and we just really became detached where it's like, oh, I'm going to place my grocery store order and have it delivered or
by drone. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually posted a picture on my personal Instagram the other day of like a Greek grocery store where it's like there's entire lamb, like the entire body hanging in the meat department, and then you got like the heads, like how we have like our burgers and meat cuts, like they'll have like the head and all the organ meats, and it's just much different, and they're just when it comes to whole food way of living. And it's kind of hard to really pinpoint a Mediterranean diet because the Mediterranean obviously has a lot of different landscapes. And even in our little region of Greece, which is like southeastern Greece, the way we eat where I stay when I'm there, which is right on like the water, because I like going to the beach every day, but there's a lot more seafood. Where if I drive an hour away up into the mountains, that's all like wild boar and rooster and rabbit, and it's just much different dishes that people are eating in the mountains versus the coastal areas. But at the end of the day, what's that?
Is there beef there too, or is it not?
It's all mountains, man. It's like rugged. We have goats and lamb and sheep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's too rugged. There are some cows up in northern Greece, but where we're at, I think I've seen one cow down in our area. I saw him like last summer. Now I think he was more of a pet or something. But no, in our region, you're eating a ton of seafood. You're eating a ton of olive oil. A lot of vegetarian dishes too. A lot of fresh vegetables. So it's much simpler way of eating.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of grilled meats.
Like pasta, spaghetti. I think that's a whole food.
It exists, but not like in Italy. I mean, they do have pasta in Greece, so they put a lot of cheese on it. They put like grated cheese on top. They're not really into sauces.
I like that. It's great.
And their sauce, it's just like basically crushed tomato. So it's crushed tomato. Like this isn't really pasta sauce, but whatever. And then so that's like the food aspect. And then the physical aspect of it is, you don't see a lot of people that are like in crazy, amazing shape, like they're not jacked and like looking like bodybuilders, but people are just healthy and you can see it. And that's because they walk everywhere. And I think we've really, really, really lost that here in America. Yeah. Just people are just so used to sitting at a desk all day long or sitting on the couch or, just being inside and driving around where they're one, like I said earlier, it's the whole country's mountainous. So even if you're on the coastline, like, and you live in a village, you're walking uphill at some point of the day. Mm-hmm. There's like a lot of very vertical walking.
Wow.
And just a lot more movement throughout the day. One thing I've always noticed about Greece and I used to always hate it, and now I kind of like it, is the furniture is always uncomfortable. Like the couches aren't like the couches here. Like they're just uncomfortable, and they're like, so a lot of times they'll still have like the plastic around them or whatever, but it's like, it's not a country made for like just hanging around and lounging. Like the floors are all marble, which is really cheap in Greece because marble's everywhere, but it's like everything's very like rough and hard, and but it makes you like always kind of be moving around and on the go and doing things. And um so the lifestyle is just a lot more active, not so much where people are working out more, because you won't see a lot of gyms, but people are just moving more all day long.
You guys have cigar lounges down there?
No.
Wow.
No, people used to smoke a lot in Greece. But I think people are like kind of doing a lot less of that. They used to have like a lot of coffee shops and whatnot, but yeah, it's the Mediterranean like diet lifestyle is definitely a thing. You'll definitely see it if you go travel to any village region of Spain, Italy, Greece, any of the Balkan nations. It's just it's much different, closer to your food sources, and definitely just getting more daily, not so much exercise, but movement, and I think it's and the whole nutrition side of thing is completely like revolves around olive oil, because that's your main base in like everything. Yeah. And it's the way it is over there, and you really notice it in the old people. You see like, even like for example, my grandmother's sister, my grandmother's still alive. She's like 104. Her sister is 95. So my great aunt, she just flew. She's like with my aunt and uncle down in Tampa right now. And you look at this lady and you think she's 75. It's like, how are you almost 100? She's like up and going and just lively. And it's like, and you see a 95-year-old here in America, and it's like, if you find that, it's just like a whole different ball game. So it's a much higher quality of life, I think. So I think they're doing something right over there, that we're on the opposite spectrum and trending the wrong way, I think.
Yeah. Supposedly I have some Balkan or half Balkan, according to those Ancestry DNA websites. So I have to check it out at some point. I forget the exact region up there, but
yeah, we all mixed up over the years.
Right. Sounds like a nice lifestyle. I love it.
It's awesome. I actually just saw a meme the other day. It was like parents coming to America back in the 70s, kind of like, when my dad came over and whatnot. It's like, I came to America to give you a better life, or I left the village in Greece to come to America and give you a better life. And then it was like kids like my age and, my sister's age, like, we just want to go back to Greece and live in a village. It's funny how it works out.
Yeah. Those memes. I have to find the Greek salad meme that you mentioned.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned earlier there's a difference between northern and southern Mediterranean olive oil.
Yes, not just northern. So the climates are much different, and the olives they use are different. But the climate, I think, has more of a role, because you can have the same olive grown in our region, which is a lot hotter, drier, more arid, much milder winters. And up north, you could have the same olive, and that olive oil will taste different. And so it's not just the Mediterranean and Greece. It's actually the whole world. Different olive oils. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it's good. It's like, it's going to taste different based on the soil, the amount of rain it got, or how much it was watered, what the temperature was that year, so all olive oils will definitely taste different. That's why, I always encourage people, like, try different ones. And once you find one you love,
except the flavored ones.
Yeah. You'll flavor your own oils. That's for sure.
I'm going to dump that off my balcony after this interview.
Yeah. And then when people do try ours, I always tell them, because obviously I'm biased and I think ours is the best, but I always tell them, though, when you try ours, try it next to whatever you currently have in your kitchen. If you're a first time customer, because I'm like, you will notice the difference right away. And and what you're tasting in ours is what you should be consuming, you know.
Right. Um, let's see. A few more questions here before we
Yeah.
wrap it up. Skincare. So like the topical use of olive oil. Any
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Yes. So back to like the old, village people, not the band, but the people in the village in Greece. We use it on everything. Hair, face, skin, you name it. It's pretty much used on everything. We've got, my wife and I have an 11-month or 11-week-old baby, and he gets rubbed down in olive oil. My mother-in-law's like, let's put him in ghee. I'm like, no, let's use olive oil. But yeah, so it's used topically on humans and pets. My mom had a little Shih Tzu that she used to put it on its feet, to keep them moisturized so they get all like the cracky dog feet. Um, Used to put it on its nose too, so it won't get too dry. And in their food, unfortunately, people feed dogs and cats food that they probably shouldn't be consuming, with all the dry kibble and all that whatnot. So it's good to get them some actual fat in their diet.
Oh, so you can just mix it into the wet food. I should try that with my
Yeah,
cats.
yeah. It will. I'm telling you, do it for a month and then look at their difference in their hair.
Wow.
You'll notice a difference.
They
Yeah,
probably love it too.
they love it.
Yeah.
Go on our Kasandrinos Instagram and on the reels, like we have some videos of dogs just going crazy for it, like jumping up and down like it. They love it. They really love it. It's pretty wild.
Wow. Dogs and cats? I mean, it's safe.
Yeah, cat. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
My dad, he lives in upstate New York, and he thinks he's back in a village in Greece. Like he's got about 40 acres, and he's got goats and a greenhouse and all sorts of animals. He's got a cow, just a bunch of dogs, a bunch of cats, and they all eat olive oil.
That's great. Wow. Well, yeah. Every day I go out to my goat. I have Saanen goats, and I use your olive oil as lubrication for her teats before I connect on my milking machine.
Yep. No, olive oil is definitely used as lube as well.
And every application, not only for milking goats.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I had a super long question. I think I mentioned to you about olive oil for autism, and just I guess it's been used with with a certain protocol for improving the cognitive,
Yes.
neural state of children.
Yep, definitely. So I always hate making medical claims because, I'm not a doctor or scientist, and I see them all the time, and I always try and do my own research. What I do tell people is obviously research whatever, ailment you or a loved one might have. If you think olive oil can assist in helping that problem, definitely consume it. That being said, if you're going to use olive oil for its health benefits, make sure you are using organic olive oil, because you do not want to use an extra virgin thinking it's healthy and, doing good, but it's actually causing inflammation because it might, have pesticide residue in it. So, and I think we touched on earlier, but like the liver flush, like if you're flushing your liver with olive oil, use organic olive oil, Right. So yeah. So when it comes to that, and I think she actually said it did help, so that's awesome. And I mean, obviously there's been a million claims about, olive oil curing this or helping this. And all I really tell people is, if you are going to use it, do your research. And then once you've done your research, just really, whether you choose ours or any other oil, just use a really high quality, fresh, organic oil.
Yeah. Yeah. While we were recording here, I just did a PubMed search, extra virgin olive oil, and there's over 1,800 results.
There's so many of them. Yes.
And like all the different compounds, like oleocanthal, you could probably just spend a lifetime on that. But
you basically can do a 4-year degree on olive oil and every chemical compound and every health benefit. And yeah.
And I'm sure when you put them together, right, the sum total is more powerful than the
Yeah.
individual
Yeah. No,
constituents.
definitely.
So
And, I mean,
interesting.
it's one of those things that, it's, it's, uh, it's not a created thing. Like this is something we've had for thousands of years, like honey, I
Right.
mean, obviously there's tons of positive properties to honey. Like nature didn't mess this one up. It's like it's been helping humans for thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah. The late, I had Dr. Cass Ingram on my show twice, and he popularized wild Mediterranean oregano oil that was like
Mhm.
non-hybridized. He was all about a certain one, P73.
Yep.
And before his death, he also promoted for years black seed oil. So he got me on both of those, which seem to be like traditional things that are mentioned in the Bible and the Quran. But olive oil is like right up there with those, right? Like it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
medicine.
I mean, honestly, like we usually mix olive oil with oregano. I mean, like the Greek staples are olive oil, oregano, salt, and lemon. Like almost all of our dishes contain that right there.
Wow, I love
Yeah.
it.
Actually, oregano is probably our next product we will be launching.
I was just gonna ask because I ordered, so for a while on my steaks, I like top sirloin. That's just my only cut that I eat. I
Mm,
just like the lean. And for years, for like 2 years straight, I was just using garlic powder, thyme, and oregano from the store in those little shakers, crappy health food store,
yeah.
low
Oh, yeah.
quality. And then one day I was like, well, I wonder if there's higher quality oregano that I can get. So I
Oh,
went
yeah.
online and ordered straight from Greece, and it took like 3 weeks to a month to get here.
Yep.
And I still have it. It came vacuum sealed, and it was like it taking a
Entirely
dose
different thing.
felt like drugs. It definitely
Yeah.
affected my brain. It
No,
was
it is. So it's funny. My wife, who loves Greek food, and she is adamant every time we come back from Greece, we bring like a bag that like a 2 pound bag of oregano, and oregano is very light, so it's a big bag, and it's
okay.
like, oh man, can't wait to go through customs with it.
It looks like weed.
Oh yeah, it's completely looks like weed, and the Greek oregano's, it's not like the stuff you see in America that's like finely cut. Like there, it's like chunks. So it literally, it's like, yeah, we're smuggling oregano over. I'll send you some. I got some
Uh,
good stuff.
are you?
But
Is that where are you gonna sell like culinary?
oh yeah,
Like
yeah, it'll be
that's great.
yeah, it's right now. It's kind of tricky because the best kind, I can't export it because it comes from one specific mountain and they don't let you export it.
Wow.
So we're looking at a few different mountain oreganos because it is actually, that's even one of those things where different oregano from different mountains taste different. And the kind that is like the most prized in our area is from this mountain, which is called Mount Taygetos, which is right behind Sparta. It's like a huge mountain range.
Wow.
And everybody goes up there and, takes their own. It's everywhere. Like oregano in Greece it grows everywhere up in the mountains. But you can't like buy it, or you can't cultivate it and export it and then sell it, so we're just looking at a few different sources. But again, that's comes to with like the soil and the climate and all that fun stuff. It makes a big difference in the finished product.
Right. I just found the one in my emails that I ordered, and it was looks like $60 for, let me see. Yeah, $60 for 2 pounds. Sounds like I probably got some swag, right? Okay.
Yeah, it would probably cost you about €8 in Greece, but yeah, even olive oil is much cheaper in Greece, just because I mean it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I wonder what region this is from. Yeah.
yeah, but
That's exciting. I'm gonna order a. I mean, is that something that you could order a like stockpile and vacuum seal and stuff? Or
yeah, so oregano will last much longer than olive oil. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't go bad like olive oil or any oil would.
mm-hmm. That's
Um,
great. Wow. What's the time frame on that? When are you thinking, like quarter
we're hoping
August?
we're hoping the end of summer right now.
Okay.
What it's looking like. We're just we're sourcing everything from like our region of Greece. So we got a few different like farmers that we're talking to. Um, we just launched a line of spices. So we have a Greek and it's all organic spice blend, which we named the Zeus blend, and then we have a pepper blend as well. It's an organic pepper blend. Then we have like a Greek sea salt. So we're gonna probably launch about 10 more this year.
I don't know how I missed that. I'm going to order that right now. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
good stuff.
we didn't talk about your balsamic too. I love using that on Brussels sprouts. I'm just very basic, but just the
Yeah, yeah,
25-star vinegar on cooked Brussels sprouts. Maybe add some ghee in there. It's so good.
yeah, yeah. The So just touch on dressings again, quick. If you mix olive oil, it's more on the sweeter side, but olive oil, like 2 parts olive oil, like 1 part honey, and 1 part of any one of those vinegars, it makes an awesome dressing.
Wow.
It's a
Okay.
great dressing on any salad. And it takes like 2 seconds, you know. And even if you throw like if you want to thicken it up a little bit, throw some ghee in there. Like it makes such a great dressing. And
Wow.
yeah.
Did you hear about the recent controversy with the Bragg's apple cider vinegar? How it was bought out by someone big and the quality went down, and it might just be one of those clickbait things. I don't know, because I was reading different things on it, but I guess it looks more watery now and tastes different and all this stuff. I don't know if you ever got into that, the Bragg's
Yeah,
episode.
it wouldn't surprise. I don't know. Like, I really don't know much about Braggs other than their olive oils is what it is. But uh, the it wouldn't
Because
surprise me. Like
that was
when
my
these companies
dressing
get
for
bought out by these giant corporations, like
right.
at the end of the day, it just sucks. Like that's like the food industry, like any other industry. At the end of the day, these giant companies, like all that matters is the profit that they're bringing in.
Right.
So if they
Right.
can save 8 cents per bottle times hundreds of thousands or millions of bottles, you're talking a lot of money over the course of the year. And unfortunately, like for food companies, like costs have skyrocketed. Like for us, like shipping costs are insane right now. And even like everything around running a business right now for almost every business, even from like our packaging to getting the packaging from the packaging facility to our facility, our fulfillment facility, like everything's going up in prices. And a lot of unfortunately, there's a lot of companies, especially the bigger ones, that are just trying to save everywhere they can.
Right.
And if that means, their apple cider vinegar maybe had a higher concentration at some point and now it doesn't, just unfortunately some of the things that happen, it could even go like, I know a lot of like chip companies are putting in like a little bit less chips, but when you're multiplying it times, you know, millions of packages, it really adds up.
Has
So
the whole Russia Ukraine thing affected like importing costs for you?
hasn't affected anything for us.
That's good.
Things have gotten better. It was really like the whole COVID thing
Mm-hmm.
and just shipping containers. The cool thing is on the entire planet, the little tiny country of Greece, which is about the size of New Jersey, it's a really small country, is the world's largest shipping country in the world,
Wow.
which a lot of people don't know. They're like, oh, little Greece, but so we actually got really lucky during the whole COVID thing with securing shipping containers and being able to get our product from Greece to America, because there's a lot of companies that were having issues making that happen. That's why there was like furniture shortages and what was happening. A lot of big companies were just buying up all these containers, and then the little guys who only wanted to bring over 1, 2, 3 containers at a time couldn't even secure one. So
Wow.
we did get lucky in that whole sense.
That's
Thank
great.
goodness. But
Well,
yeah.
last question for you, Tony. How much olive oil do households where he's from go through in a week? Trying to decide whether I should budget for more olive oil in my life or how much to buy. I think
In
earlier you said
a
auto
week,
ship's a good idea.
auto ship is an awesome idea, in my opinion, just for our brand, because one, you don't got to worry about, um, ordering it. You can always switch the amount. Like if you have too much at home, you can pause it. You can I have certain staples that like I know I'm using every month, that I'm on auto ship because I know I'm going to need it. Even like my kids' diapers right now, like I'm on auto ship on them. I'm like, oh shoot, we need these sooner than we thought. So we move the date up, kind of same thing with our oil. You can move the date up, forward, add more products, take away products, and it just kind of keeps you to where it's coming, and you can kind of adjust it based on your usage. Me personally, me personally, Tony goes through about a liter a month. I'd say that's the average. I do use more olive oil in the summer months because I eat a lot more Greek salads. Like I eat a Greek salad a day from
Wow.
May till September, and even more than that when I'm in Greece. My mother-in-law uses a ton of olive oil, which is kind of weird for an Indian woman, and she cooks like all Indian food. But yeah, she uses a ton, which is awesome because she used to use like soybean oil and the not so great oils. But now all her Indian dishes taste a lot better. But yeah, so I'd say on average, I mean, we use, I use about a liter. So I'd say in our household, we're probably going through 3 liters a month between the 3 of us. And now the baby, he'll start eating solid foods here hopefully soon. But yeah, it all depends. I mean, everybody's different. Everyone's different times of year. Yeah. And I'd say just, get some, see how much you use in a month, and then go from there with that.
Yeah, and you have a recipe section on your site too. And it's pretty interesting. You have like alcohol, like cocktails and vodka with olive oil drops. That's pretty cool. I've never imagined adding it to a beverage like that.
Yeah. So I actually I think we were talking about alcohol before. I actually kind of quit. Not that I was like drinking a lot. I just stopped when my wife got pregnant. She didn't drink anymore. So not that I ever really drank a lot, but I'd have a beer or wine or old fashioned here and there. So when she couldn't drink anymore, I kind of stopped and just haven't had a drink since. But I will say my recipe developer in Greece, she is a former mixologist, and she's a rock star, and is a pro at infusing drinks with olive oil. So for anybody that does drink, we do actually have a lot of really awesome signature martinis and just all sorts of alcoholic and non-alcoholic uses of olive oil. We actually have a recipe club as well, which is a daily recipe.
Oh, cool.
And people can sign up for that, and it's like a paid subscription, but it comes with a lot of other perks like really good discounts and really exclusive deals and things, and a free ebook every month. So a lot of fun stuff. But there's a ton of really cool ways you can use it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm so boring with cooking. I'm just lazy. It's like 2-3 ingredients, but
that's good sometimes though.
Right. But
it's easy.
Some of these look so easy to, like the lemon garlic tuna pasta. I'm going to make that the next few days. That looks incredible. And easy, super quick, just like bachelor meals. I mean, even though I'm not a bachelor, it's just super easy, quick meals. So,
I'm right there with you about simplicity. Like I like to grill something in about 8 minutes and maybe eat some raw vegetables on the side.
Well, Tony, this was awesome. Really, really appreciate what you're doing, offering this to the world. And I love how passionate you are about it, and just the heart behind it's really cool. And the education aspect is great. I learned so much. I realized up until this interview, I've been doing it wrong with your olive oil. So I'm going to switch up a few things and probably feel the benefits. So
awesome. Sounds good.
So your website, Kasandrinos.com. I think my discount still works. I forget.
Oh, wait. Actually, let me stop you. I created a new one for you.
Oh.
For this. As a 20% discount for the customers.
Oh, no way. Wow.
Yeah. So it's, I just made it MB20. I made it really simple.
MB20.
Mike Bravo 20.
And that's for one time.
Only for people who listen to the podcast. One time or subscriptions.
Wow. Appreciate that. That's very generous. Cool.
Yeah. So
purchase or subscriptions. Cool. I'll put that in the notes. MB20. It's easy to remember. And I would say just word of advice to people ordering: don't go crazy like I did. I think I think it was your Black Friday sale or something. I went nuts and just ordered a ton. And it's easy to over order, but then
Yeah.
you're not going to go through all that. So unless you give it all away.
That's the thing. I mean, it's a great gift, you know, like we actually have a gift box now. I think you can see it behind me up there, but it's got like a olive oil and vinegar, but it does make a great gift because like everybody always when you go to a holiday party or, you know, whatever, it's like, oh, here's a bottle of wine, you know, it's like give someone something unique.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Tony. This was a lot of fun, and stick around as we close out the show.
Yeah, definitely.
If you had any questions about olive oil, I'm sure that they were answered in that podcast. They certainly were for me. I'm really inspired to increase my olive oil consumption. The night that we recorded that, I poured olive oil on my top sirloin steaks, and I was blown away. I actually enjoyed it more than butter. The flavor was incredible. And then the next night I tried it on salmon, Alaskan salmon, and that was also equally incredible. And now I'm inspired to make those infusions that he mentioned instead of going to Costco like I did, buying that low-grade garbage with flavorings in it. You just take the real stuff, good quality olive oil that meets all the criteria that Tony laid out, and then just put lemon in it or put garlic cloves in it and let it infuse. I'm definitely going to do that, and I can't wait to see how that upgrades my meals. And also having a Greek salad every day when you can get in-season local tomatoes and cucumbers sounds incredible. And I'm a little embarrassed that I asked about the greens in it. Once he was describing it and I could visualize it, I remembered having, you know, low quality versions of the Greek salad in restaurants. And I'm really excited to create that from food that I grow in my geodesic growing dome once that's finally live. So the website to check out this olive oil is Kasandrinos.com. And as he mentioned, he made a special discount code just for listeners of the show, especially if you made it this far. That was pretty in-depth. Discount code is MB20, and that'll give you 20% off either one-time purchase or subscriptions. And right when we finished recording, I immediately went and ordered the 3-pack spice bundle. I haven't tried his spices yet, but I love trying different ones as rubs for steaks or my salmon. So I'm really excited to get those and try them. But the balsamic, as I mentioned in the show, is unbelievably good. I love that 25-star vinegar on Brussels sprouts. It's just incredible. If you want to check out my work and my protocol, you can go to matt-blackburn.com. I have the CLF protocol up there. That stands for calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. And no matter what diet you're on, whether you're vegan or carnivore, high fat or low fat, whatever program you're doing, there's some key components that you can add in to start to chip away at these 3 accumulations in the body. And this is constantly a work in progress, similar to my message, which I get a lot of flack about often with my experimental lifestyle of always trying new things and just sharing openly what I'm doing. I think a lot of people appreciate that because it allows them to be more free in their thinking and, oh yeah, why not experiment? Why not try this other thing? If I seem to be plateauing here, it's not going to hurt to try this for a little while. And if it doesn't work, whatever, try something else in reason, not to get into this spiral to where you're neurotic and just constantly obsessing over health, because there's the razor's edge there. There's the fine line to walk where you're still emphasizing healthy relationships and disconnecting from all inputs in your ears, music, podcasts, going on walks outside. I love doing that when there's not heavy snow on the ground, taking walks around my lake, through the backwoods, and just being completely tuned in and grounded into nature. That is a really important piece, especially if you're living the way that I am in an experiential, experimental way, to also do that, to stay balanced and grounded. I try to mention that a lot, but it can't be mentioned enough because it's an easy thing to forget. I forget it. We all forget it. It's always just going back to that balance point as much as possible. My brand is Mitolife. You can find that at mitolife.co. And most of the products are in stock. I'm working hard to get the only one that's out of stock back in stock. That's the elk velvet antler. And I'm shooting for by the end of January. We've just been through a lot of hoops. As I mentioned on one of my social media channels, I threw out thousands and thousands of bottles. I think it was 6,000 bottles because the grade was not to my standards. And I really value quality. So I decided to just get rid of that batch, even though people wanted to buy it at a discount or half price or give it to their pets or whatever. I did not feel comfortable putting that out there. That's less than the highest quality possible. So that'll be back by the end of the month. If you'd like to gain access to the behind the scenes, the latest and greatest experiments that I'm conducting, discoveries, connections, you can head over to YouTube and look up the Mitolife Academy. It's $15 a month. Been doing it for a few years. You get 2 videos a month and a live Q&A, which you can ask me anything, and I talk about what I'm doing. Lately, it has to do with intermittent fasting, my latest experiments with that, but specifically called time-restricted feeding. And also, I've been looking into ketosis, which I will have an episode out on that with a really intelligent individual by the end of the month. So I'll be sharing my experience with that, my thoughts on that. That is a wrap for today. I'll see you guys next Friday. Stay supercharged.